companion piece to rubrics is outcomes. So outcomes are where you're going to assess mastery in a course for a student. And where you build outcomes, you do see in your sidebar here, it's one of the options. So if you click on outcomes, I don't think you have any in there as of yet. So you probably have a page that looks a lot like this with nothing there. Here's where you're able to add new groups of outcomes. So if you have outcomes that are for your course or your school that you wanted to add, you can easily add a group of them. If you click on find, I don't know if that you'll find anything. What happens if you click on find? Is there anything already loaded in to your environment? No, nothing there. Okay. If there were to be any that were added for your sub-accounts, so for your individual schools or divisions, and you click find, you could import them easily into a course. But since you don't have any in there, let's look at what maybe some of them could be. So I've created some outcomes in my English course here. And the first one is writing and communication. So I created this group called writing and communication. And then you can add a new outcome into this group of outcomes. So far I have appropriate modes, communicate effectively, and respond effectively. What else could we have in there for writing and communication? Uses proper grammar. So when you're building an outcome, you have the ability to name it, give it a friendly name, and then describe it. And then down here, you have criteria ratings, kind of like what we just had for rubrics. And you're able to add as many different ratings for this criterion, because this is really an outcome is its own criterion. And then I can say exceeds, meets, or does not meet expectations. I'm just going to leave it like that for right now. And I'm able to tell Canvas, when do I want my students to say they have mastered this? So I'm going to set it at 3 for right now. And then you have the choice here to pick all these different calculation methods. So there are a bunch of them in here. So decaying average, there's a math explanation for each one. I will get you a link that describes all of these. But decaying average is going to take a look at all of the times the student has been assessed on this outcome. And the most recent result counts as 65%, the rest count 35%. They're all very mathematical. There is n number of times. So for this one, you say, student must achieve mastery this number of times in order for them to have mastered this outcome in my course. This one is most recent score. So mastery is reflected for the most recent time you used it. And then there's highest score. So you do have those 4 options for when you are setting up an outcome in your course. Once you have an outcome, that's created. All right. So I have 4 in this group. I have for writing and communication. Then what you're able to do with an outcome is you can add them to a rubric that you've created. So in addition to having the ability to assess students on the rubrics, you can also attach an outcome to it. So you can then assess your students not only on the rubrics for the assignment, but you can also keep track of how they're progressing toward mastery of an outcome on your assignment. Where does that get tracked? Well, when you go into grade the assignment, and I was using it with you guys because I wanted to show you how this looks in your course. So I was using it for you, and it gets tracked in your grades. And so when I look at my grade book, I see both the traditional grades, and I'm going to also get this other tab here that's learning mastery. So as I was assessing you on the different rubrics that I had outcomes attached to it, And I was assessing you on easy things like can participate in a Canvas course and can turn in Canvas assignments. Then it was just keeping track of it for me, and now I'm able to look for all of my course, how many of my students are exceeding or meeting or well below mastery. So this is the learning mastery. It's pulling from those outcomes. I can see that everyone in my course so far knows how to participate in a Canvas discussion, and everyone in my course so far can submit a Canvas assignment. It is keeping a report for me that I can then export. So if I needed that data, Rachel, like you do for your accreditation, I can export those reports. It's also attaching for each one of my students these pieces of evidence that they're working toward mastery of these concepts.
Can it not do that?
Yeah, it doesn't have to do that. You can. And then if I hover over, I'm getting these graphs. So all of this is being built because I have those outcomes attached to rubrics. And then when I went in and assessed my students, I started keeping this learning mastery grade. So learning mastery is something you can turn on for your course, and you can have it just show for you, or you can have it show to your students. So if you don't want your students to see that you're tracking their mastery through outcomes, you don't have to have that show for your students at all. And I will show you how you turn that on for your course. Or not. It's in settings. And it's over here under feature options. So the first one is Learning Mastery Gradebook. And if you want that on, you just move the toggle so that the green is checked. And then if you want that to also show for students, you just move it over. If you don't want the students to show, just make sure the X is there, and it'll still track it for you. Again, it's not going to do anything unless you have outcomes built for your course, and those outcomes are attached to rubrics. Questions about that? You guys look like that was it. Like you're fading. Maybe rubrics and outcomes shouldn't have been the last thing for today. Emily.
So as far as sharing these,
How?
yeah, basically.
Okay. So, I don't know how your structure is set up for your account at Rutgers, or if you haven't built it yet.
So,
Okay. So outcomes can be created at the top level, at the very top account level, or they can be built at a sub-account level. So if you have the top account, like your road account, and then you have each one of these schools is a sub-account. So maybe the School of Social Work is a sub-account. The outcomes for that school can be loaded in at that top level. So once they're there, the teachers can pull them into their courses, and they don't actually have to do the building and creating of outcomes. Because this part is not easy to do, right? Or to think about. It's kind of tough. So outcomes and rubrics can be built at that sub-account level, and I would suggest that you do that at like the school level. Where do you?
What are the interfaces that?
It would happen under this admin. Yep. And you can put in both rubrics and outcomes, and you can set a grading scale in there. So have you guys been to your admin trainings yet? As we go through all that good stuff. Not yet. Okay. Yeah. So it happens there. Yep. So those are those shared resources: outcomes, rubrics. So if you don't ever want to get into the weeds with that, with any of your instructors, you can take care of that at the top level. And all they're ever going to need to use is that find. Find for outcomes, find for rubrics.
So we would have to contact the schools if they have shared rubrics.
Yep. And just say, hey, give them to me and put them in. It's a process.
Can we upload them from if they've already built them in a course?
If they're already in Canvas,
Yeah.
yes, you can access them if they're in Canvas. Yes. Yeah, that's the good news. If they aren't in Canvas yet, no. Okay. Yeah.
Can they be imported, or do they have to be copied and pasted?
From outside of Canvas, they have to be, rubrics have to be copied and pasted, so they have to be recreated. Yeah. Outcomes, sometimes depending, you can give the outcomes to your IC, and a lot of those can be imported for you. So if you have outcomes already, they should be able to import them for you guys. So if you have like a list of them, they might be able to put them in for you. Like my K-12 schools, what they do is state standards, and Canvas uploads them for us, so we don't have to worry about it. So they could probably import some of your outcomes for you guys. Looks like you guys are done. You're done?